Hey everyone, Lewis aka Spider-Man 991 here with another comic book review. Today I review the comic books that were released on July 18th, 2018, and as usual I will rank these comics from worst to best. Let's get started. New Challengers, number 3. The New Challengers head to Scartaris, aka DC's own Jurassic World, so they can collect another skeleton fragment for Prof, who also reveals in this issue that he's been collecting the skeleton of one of the beings that was originally a part of the source wall, and apparently if you get enough fragments together you can alter history itself. Meanwhile, the original Challengers who appeared at the end of last issue are stuck on Challengers Mountain, and they're murdered by the Big Bad, who's revealed to be another version of Prof. Right now, the plot of this story feels very scattered. Also, this issue is really weighed down by its exposition of the skeleton fragments and one of the new Challengers, Crunch's backstory. Also, I'm pretty sure that that's pretty much going to be the formula for this issue for like the next couple of for the next 2 issues, because we've got 4 members of the New Challengers. We've already gone through 2 of them, so the next 2 we're also going to see more of their backstory. Then by issue 6 everything will just head right into the end. But yeah, this is really just 3 more issues. At this point I'm just going to see it through to the end because it's a mini series. It's going to end after issue 6, but honestly right now at this moment I cannot recommend New Challengers. Avengers, number 5. Ghost Rider captures Captain America from Loki's boring monologue. They both Ghost Rider and Cap reunite with the rest of the heroes in Russia, and the newly formed Avengers get ready to take on the Dark Celestials for one final fight. Alright, so earlier I said that Loki had... Okay, so I said Loki had a really bad monologue, and it is just really dull. Basically, it's just Loki telling Captain America about how the infected Celestials sort of led to the cause of life on Earth, and its infection in the primordial ooze pretty much helped create life on the planet. And, you know, like my problem with New Challengers was this one is very heavy with exposition in the beginning. After that, though, the issue really starts kicking off. Once the team gets together, it's just non-stop action. We get a lot of cool fights. Also, this issue does confirm that Ghost Rider is probably going to be the breakout character of this Avengers incarnation. Most of my favorite scenes involved Ghost Rider. One was when he's helping the Avengers save civilians, and Ghost Rider considers running from the fight, and Cap explains that, you know, that's okay if you feel like you can't stand it, but I've seen you do some pretty amazing stuff so far, and I think you would be a really great asset. And this leads to my other favorite moment of this issue, where Ghost Rider and you know how Ghost Rider has the ability to pretty much possess any vehicle? Well, he possesses the body of a fallen Celestial. So at the end of the issue, when we've got half the Avengers, Captain America, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and Captain Marvel dealing with the Horde, the rest of the team goes and deals with the Celestials, with Iron Man and a new God Killer Armor Mark II. Thor and the Hulk and She-Hulk get some huge power-ups that just makes them big, like they're from Super Mario Brothers. And Ghost Rider is pretty much in a possessed Celestial, and that final double-page shot looked awesome. Also, the dialogue in this book really shines when it's exchanges between the heroes, particularly the exchanges between Iron Man and Doctor Strange. If you really love the banter between RDJ and Benedict Cumberbatch from Infinity War, then I think you'll enjoy the words spoken between Doctor Strange and Iron Man in this series. But yeah, Avengers, for me, it's still kind of a mixed bag, but I think it still has some potential, so I'm sticking with it. Justice League, number 4. The Legion of Doom finally gains the upper hand. Gorilla Grodd is able to use the Speed Flash's use of the Speed Force to help fully charge the Still Force, which also supplies Sinestro with enough power to take control of all the planets that the invisible spectrum entity Umbrax has under its control, including Earth. And this issue really capped off with Lex Luthor and the Joker taking control of Superman and Martian Manhunter respectively. So I think with this issue we're finally starting to see some payoff with all the stuff that Scott Snyder set up in Dark Knight's Metal and No Justice. There's also some backstory. We're also given some backstory about what exactly Martian Manhunter did during his time away from Earth and how it sort of connects with the vision he had back in Justice League number 1. I have to say that this issue's best sequences are when Batman and Martian Manhunter both slowly realize that Lex Luthor is behind all of this. Also, when Sinestro exerts his control of the invisible spectrum, he ends up putting John Stewart back into the ultraviolet cord and destroying John Stewart's Green Lantern ring. I thought that was an interesting settlement because we are getting to the end of Robert Venditt's Hal Jordan the Green Lantern Corps series, which is where John Stewart's been this entire time. So I think this kind of like sets this character up in a new direction for when that title ends. Nevertheless though, the story is pretty complex, but I think that's the type of stuff I expect from a Justice League title. It's got huge scale stakes. It's got a lot of action, a lot of cosmic-y stuff, and I think that's what the Justice League is for. So if you like Justice League for all those reasons, I definitely recommend picking up this title. Tony Stark, Iron Man, #2. Tony and Rhodey suit up for China when Banetronics uses a bunch of illegally acquired Stark tech to make and sell a device known as an assault vehicle known as the Manticore. However, during the fight, Rhodey suffers a panic attack and ejects himself from the War Machine suit. While this issue doesn't focus on Tony, it does provide some interesting look at the series' supporting cast, and does kind of give us a hint for what Slott has planned for like the rest of the Iron Man cast. However, the real star of this issue, I would say, is definitely James Rhodes. I liked how Slott shows that Rhodey, even though Rhodey's got a brand new body, coming back, he still has a lot of trauma, and that sort of and him dying in the War Machine suit sort of manifests itself now as claustrophobia. Because as soon as Rhodey ejects himself from the War Machine armor and he takes control of the Manticore vehicle, he kind of says to Tony that he prefers this over another suit, and Tony's like, okay, and Tony pretty much buys Banetronics and pretty much says to Rhodey that he'll start working on another device for him to use for when he wants to suit up for action. And I'm kind of excited to see what type of War Machine-esque vehicle Tony could produce. Also, this issue does sort of nail us with the cliffhanger at the end when Tony and Rhodey are heading back, and Tony tells Rhodey that, look, these new buys I gave us, yours is fine, but I think there's something wrong with mine. I would say that Tony Stark Iron Man, it's a pretty good series if you haven't read Iron Man in a while. It touches upon a few things, but they're not really, I would say, essential for what's coming forward. As long as you have a vague idea about what happened to Rhodey, you'll be fine. You'll understand. You'll be able to jump right into this series. So I'm still eager, and I like Dan Slott's work, so I'm still eager to give this series a try. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers #29. Andros, the Red Space Ranger, arrives to tell the other Power Rangers where Lord Dracon is keeping the captured Rangers. Meanwhile, the barriers between all the different timelines or realities start to weaken, and every other available Ranger answers the distress call that the original Power Rangers in the command center have put out to help them with a rescue mission so that they can get all the Rangers that Dracon's captured free. However, in order to deal with Lord Dracon himself, Zordon and Commander Kruger of SPD seek help from Rita Repulsa. The best example of artwork in this issue is the sequence when the other Rangers arrive at the command center. First off, it starts off as a 2-page spread where we've got the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers looking up to the sky, and we see a bunch of different lights coming down in the night sky. Like, it's something like out of the Northern Lights. And as soon as all the Rangers land, we're getting to a full splash page where we see a variety of different Power Rangers from many different eras come together to help out the other Ranger. This issue also had a great moment where we see Lord Dracon contact Future Kimberly, aka the former Ranger Slayer, and it's an interesting scene to see because we get to see the exact same conversation from the last issue of Go-Go Power Rangers play out, but from the perspective of Lord Dracon, which is fantastic. I think that's a good parallel to sort of connect what's going on with Mighty Morphin into Go-Go Power Rangers. Also, I'm a big fan of Power Rangers Space, and I really enjoyed the scene when Andros enters the command center and he's reunited with Corone, who is wearing her pink Lost Galaxy Ranger suit. I really loved that. I loved that. Like, the moment when Andros sees her, he knows that he succeeds in saving her, and I think that was something. And as a fan of that franchise, I really loved seeing that. Oh, and speaking of Lost Galaxy, we find out that Grace Sterling, who was the Red Ranger in another set of Power Rangers before Jason, her company actually is currently building and developing Terra Venture, which is the base of the Power Rangers from Lost Galaxy. So that's a really nice Easter egg, a really good way to sort of like connect everything in the Power Rangers universe. Honestly, Shattered Grid is a very amazing event. We're getting towards the end, and if you're not a Power Ranger fan, you haven't been reading this, find all the issues, go online, go to your local comic book shop and start reading, because this story is something you do not want to miss. Okay, the last comic, my pick of the week is Batman number 51. Bruce Wayne gets jury duty. The criminal on trial is Mr. Freeze for the murder of 3 women. During the trial, Bruce maintains a calm demeanor, but flashbacks show that when he captured Mr. Freeze, he was very intense. Like Christian Bale intense. Also, when Freeze takes the stand, he states that he only confessed to this crime so that Batman would stop beating him up because he was almost reaching the point of death. Ultimately, though, when the jury goes in to reach their final verdict, Freeze's words really hit Bruce into thinking that maybe he was wrong, and Bruce ends up being the only person who votes not guilty. This was another fantastic issue by Tom King. I really loved the setting where we get to go in the Gotham City courthouse, because it's a very interesting way for the reader to see how the city courts deal with all of the Batman cases. And there's a really great scene where we have Gordon on the stand, and he has to explain how they acquired some evidence by Batman, and it was an autopsy performed by Batman on the victims, and the court pretty much calls into question whether or not it's valid because Batman technically doesn't have an autopsy license. And of course Gordon gets frustrated behind the whole thing, and when you think about, and shortly after I read that scene, I kind of feared he probably has to do this a lot, like probably more than any other cop. So yeah, I would understand why he would definitely be frustrated. Also, while Bruce is sequestered for the jury, Dick Grayson is filling in as Batman, and this was actually announced a couple months ago. They said that after Batman number 50, Dick would sort of fill in for a bit, and I think a lot of us assumed it was because of the honeymoon, but that's not the case. And there's a funny scene where Dick goes to answer the bat signal, and when he gets there, Gordon immediately knows, is like, you're not him, you're not the usual guy. I just loved how Jim Gordon immediately knows whenever it's not Bruce under the cowl. But still, my favorite part of this issue was definitely Mr. Freeze's testimony. I loved how it just sort of like made Bruce sort of think like maybe he was wrong, despite all his skills and all the evidence, he was wrong, that mostly he was probably acting out of anger, because the last few nights he really wasn't himself. And I think this is a good way for Tom King to sort of address the idea, to address like how Bruce is feeling after his wedding did not go through, and it's a good way to sort of touch on it while not making it the entire center focus of the story. Overall, Tom King is still writing a fantastic Batman series, and if you're not reading this right now, I say you should definitely be reading it, because right now I would say Batman is still one of the best DC comics out there. Okay, that's it for my comic book review. Thank you again for watching. Remember to subscribe, stay notified. You can either hit the bell icon, follow me on Twitter, link is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Later days.